Señoras y señores, autoridades presentes, a todos ustedes, muy buenos días. Nuevamente les damos una cordial bienvenida a la 15ª Jornada de Dirección y Liderazgo Escolar en el marco del Summit Internacional de Educación 2026, una iniciativa organizada por la Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile con el auspicio de Duoc UC, Banco Santander y la
Jiafang, scholar of the University of Education of Hong Kong. Dr. Jiafang is Associate Professor of the University of Education of Hong Kong, Director of the Center of Change and Leadership of Asia Pacific, and editor and consultant of 2 magazines. She has been acknowledged with several awards as a teacher, researcher. His research is focused on the management of complex organizational teams, innovation, and institutional. In addition to that, Magdalena Claro will be commenting on this presentation. She is a director of the Center of Studies of Policies and Practices of Education of CPUC. Please welcome Dr. Jiafang Lu. Muchas gracias, Victoria.
Oh, I better stay here because the mic. As a teacher, that was not I often do. This is my first trip to Latin America. And this morning, I had my first metro ride with the beep card. And I saw something I never seen on literature. Did you know the morning hours? Many people, many passengers. So we were standing. I was traveling with Professor Mike Johannesburg. And we were surrounded by people that were standing. So many people standing next to us. And I was surrounded by 7 adults. 2 of them are female, and 5 of them are male. 6 of them were reading. All of them are holding a book while they were standing, cannot standing that steadily. So that was a very striking scene to me. That's something I never expected to see. I never read it in the literature. And the PISA test will never tell you how many people will read while they were traveling in the metro. So I think at the system level, at the schools, you must do something very good about it. I think that's something you should, if you are a school principal, if you are a teacher, if you are education authority, you should take a moment to feel really good about yourself. And that's something you did very well. I think that's something we wanted to see before the advancement of AI. During the advancement of AI, that's something we definitely want to continue to see after the AI. So that is the first point I wanted to share with you and keep haunting in my mind. I'm from Hong Kong, and actually Hong Kong is a city with very similar size like San Diego. We have 7 million residents. You have 8 million residents. And we have about now slightly less because of the drop of the birth rate. Now we have almost 1,000 schools. And half of them are primary school and half of them are secondary school. And we also have about 90% of them were public government funded. And about less than 10% of them were privately funded. So that is the system I'm coming from. And I work for Education University of Hong Kong. This is a government-funded university. And about 70% of the teachers, they were graduated from our university. So our research, our teaching are actually all about the schools, and our centers work more about the work of school leaders, teacher leaders, principal leaders. So our university, every year we have about 4,000 students graduated. Most of them were teachers. And in Hong Kong, the teachers working very long hours, and they get very well paid, but also they teach incredibly long hours. They teach more than 20 hours a week, very often more than 20 hours a week. So I try to, that's too much or too little? Too little. So contrast, how many hours you teach a week? You teach 40 hours a week. But how come that some of the teachers, they get paid for only 30 hours a month? That's also the other side of it.
Chronological hours of school because of the clock, right? Or differently than the logical time that we are teaching.
Okay.
That's a different thing. If I get like 40 hours weekly, as an average.
Okay, I will tell you something else. I hope that will not make you cry. Actually, Hong Kong teachers taught a lot more than those teachers in the other system in the East Asia. Like mainland China, their teachers teaching no more than around 12 hours a week. But they were busy. Trust me. They arrive at school at 7 a.m. Many of them will not leave school until 7 p.m. That's a lot of work, there's a lot of teaching preparation, a lot of teaching research. And later I'm going to talking about, I try to organize my sharing around 2 questions. So what are the real challenges and opportunities in the region where I came from, and what are those implications for school leadership? And I try to share my observation with some real scenario, make sure that is accessible to you. And these were the number one challenge I think I wanted to share is, I'm aware that for busy school leaders, teachers, AI is not something you can go back to school, like what we have here today. You can talking about AI all the time. AI for you in your real school life. AI is probably 1 out of 100 important things you need to take care of on daily basis. Is that the case? AI is only 1 out of 100 important things you need to take care of every day. You make sure you keep up with the pace of the curriculum. You make sure the kids are in good relationship, the kids are not sad, the kids are secure. You make sure you you get those ticks done on your checklist. There were so many important things that school leaders and the teachers needed to deal with on daily basis, and AI is only one of them. And AI is rapidly changing. At the same time, many other things are also rapidly changing. Your kids many years ago, you wanted to, can you relate to that in San Diego or in Latin America? Your kids would rather to stay in his room with his device. Can you also relate it to this? 2000, before the whole movement of decentralization of school governance, right? The parents, they have high respect for the schools. Is that the case in San Diego, in Latin America? But now you will get questioned by your parents. They think they know more about education probably than teachers do. So I think this is the other reality that goes side by side with the advancement of AI. Around the world, we see this educational convergence. There are more and more stress on performativity. They wanted you to show you deliver. They wanted to show improvement, regardless where they started with. While you see the decentralization of governments, but there is also re-centralization of the school governance. And you refer to international test, standard test, you were driven by that. And you are facing increased more and more greater parental choice. More selection was given to the parents from the type of school they want to go to, which school they wanted to go to, the type of curriculum they wanted to choose for the students, the type of activity they wanted to arrange for their kids. Around the world, most of the system, we are facing the declining birth rate. We are promoting digital education. We are facing the problem of teacher stress and burnout, and even leaving the profession. And we are talking about AI. I think this year is probably more and more, and anywhere it's hardly find a education conference without a theme of AI. And at the same time, the tradition also persists. This is the case in Hong Kong. The parents said, we love happy schools, but then they send their kids to the schools performing very well. Of course, the best thing is they are happy and they perform very well. Is that the case in Latin America? We are facing declining the birth rate. And every year we see the closure of schools. Even we try to, like Hong Kong system, we are adjusting the class size from 30 to 23. But still, we have to close schools. And at the same time, the government is starting new schools. So you can imagine the competition that's going on among the schools. So these are all I think that's some common background that goes side by side with the advancement of AI. And the influence, the impact they also have on school is not less than the impact that AI have on our school. So I think this is one of the biggest challenges for the school leaders. That is, you are not dealing with AI only. You are dealing with AI in a rapidly changing, broader environment. And this environment is getting even more complicated in the broader context of deglobalization and then reglobalization. The kids are accessing something totally different, and the kids are accessing some information online the parent may didn't know. And while we're working into the age of education 4.0, because that comes after this industry 4.0 idea that we are running in economic. We have expert here. He will talking, I believe our next keynote speaker will tell us more about this, the fundamental shift in this the model, how the business will run and how the systems will coexist. But the one thing we cannot deny is that AI is really changing the way we live, we work and we learn. This was something published by BBC and from the PwC back how many years ago? This was before COVID, actually. At that time, they've already predict the AI brought us both challenges and opportunities. While they are replacing jobs, they are also creating jobs. So I wanted to share with you some real scenarios that how AI is actually happening in the Asia, in the China part, in where I coming from, that how the AI is actually shaping the life of people. Okay, I give you several quick scenarios. This is the scenario in the farming agricultural sector.
到2023年以后，这个大模型行业就进入了高速发展的一个阶段。现在大模型技术其实已经从实验室走出来了，它是深入到千行百业的这种深度的应用场景，帮助人们解决在实际生产服务中遇到的各种问題。
李路話：以佢哋公司為例，就已經為各行各業度身訂造專屬佢哋嘅 AI 智能體。好似最近佢哋就同中國工程院嘅院士合作，設計咗一個農業智能體。
他是我們中國工程院的院士朱友勇，他就研究怎麼在旱地上，甚至在高山上把水稻種出來。一個縣一般有10幾萬個農民，但是院士只有他一個人，他沒有辦法去隨時隨地回答農民問他的各種關於種植的問題。這個智能體它就是學習了朱友勇畢生的研究成果，高仿真了他的神態和聲音，做了一個數字人，然後就可以讓當地的這個村民隨時隨地的對話。
我想
看到什麼時候種最好，種植旱地擁擠稻需要注意些什麼呀？
種植旱地水稻的最佳季節，如果旱地稻出現病蟲害，可以採取以下措施。
真的是解決了當地農民的這個吃飯的問題，並且帶領當地脫貧致富。
So this is one application, and the second application, a quick application, I wanted to show you.
我間公司係同啲大學做 solution 嘅。
So they collaborate with the university
我哋去做嘅 solution。咁
to
當時佢哋係
develop
有
a
200萬
platform
篇古書
for them to access
全部都
all
係
Asian
嘅，即係
texts.
你係逐個頁咁樣去睇嘅。我哋整完個 AI 之後咧，出咗嚟咧就係基本上就係幾秒鐘就可以揾到，即係譬如係邊一個 page、邊一個 line、邊個人去講咗啲乜嘢嘢，即刻打個 keyword 出嚟就即刻 search 到個200萬個文件當中嘅邊一篇。而且而家可以變成 ChatGPT 咁樣，就可以問佢問題。
And
我間公司係
they are also using this technology. This is a school. We brought a group of principals to visit it last month. This is a school in Shenzhen, which is next to Hong Kong. And this is the physical education class. They have physical education class every day, 5 classes a week. So as we can see, there isn't a single student is waiting. It's static. Every student is moving. They're using the basketball, and every student is moving. And the PE teachers, the physical education teachers, he was carrying his iPad and running around the basketball yard. Because on his iPad, if you see, on his iPad, there were some small boxes, and every boxes stand for a student. They stand for a student. As you know that when you are watching the kids, a big group of visitors watching the kids will play very hard, increasingly harder. So you will see those red boxes. That means they move too much. There is a cardiac direct information directly transmitted from the watch to the teacher's iPad. So the teachers can immediately say, hey, cool down a little bit. And then there were also some gray boxes. The gray boxes means they are not active enough because all of them are wearing that watch. So every class is not a device for the kids to wear all day long. It's only a device for the kids to wear during the physical education class, PE class. So they will wear it when this is PE class. The teacher will see, oh, you are not some of the gray boxes, meaning you are not active enough. Please go on. So these were those one real scenario we see in the school that AI is used. And also in this school, right outside of the classroom, you see a screen that is telling you in this class how many times it was the teacher speaking, and how many times it was the students working, and how many times they will have group-based discussion. And that was the screen put outside the classroom. And then even the principal or the teachers, they wanted to check walking through the class, they're reading that screen, they immediately knows that's what's going on. And they absorb message that for every class, they will also keep at least 9 seconds, 9 images that to tell what's going on in the class. And in Hong Kong, this is one of the principals we work very closely with. He's not someone with a strong technology background. He has a background in biology, but he's so active in attending all workshop, training, self-teaching. So he models learning and applying AI. And last year, it's very early last year, he have already developed, using Copilot, to develop agent for him to manage the school documents. So that the teachers, without asking him, by asking the Copilot agent, they can get all the important school documents in a secure way. So their school also invested very much into the data security, different level of level of access right. Because if you are the principal, you have the access right to all the documents. But if you are a first-year frontline teacher in teaching mathematics, perhaps you could access most of those school curriculum documents and the circulars from the education authority. And he also make his school to apply that into aid students self-assessment and using this AI to observe class and using the information provided by those AI system to provide feedback for the teacher, for the class observation. So I think this is a new white book published by the World Economics Forum this month, and they presented the future scenarios at the intersection of 2 dimensions: AI advancement, the advancement of the AI, and the workforce readiness. And so if in this upper right zone, that means supercharged progress. There were fundamental quick AI advancement with the high level of workforce readiness. And very likely that for the teaching education, we're supposing in this area, like health, there were some big advancement. However, the most of the advancement were about augmentation. It's not about automation. And this will be the area see a lot of displacement. And scenario 4, that it will be the area that you see a lot of scattered applications, which increase the problem of inequality. There were some very advanced application, but there were some very lagged behind application. You see frustrations and enlarged inequality. So the question for us is, I show you some examples. That were examples that caught my attention, our attention, and they see by the community. But most of the schools in the community, they were not like that. Most of the schools in the community are not like that. There are huge gaps in the application. So system-wise, where we are now and what we will be in 2030, I think that is a question we can think using this model to guide our consideration. And the second point, and I wanted to further elaborate, is that not only those changes happening in the system, in the education environment, within school, we also facing these challenges. We are basically dealing two worlds. And one world is about the past, the present, and the other world is the future. And we needed to dealing with that contradiction, that tension, that sometimes they may be compatible on daily basis. And compared to other, slightly different from other leadership approach, when we're dealing with instruction, we need to focus on the curriculum, developing the teachers, etc. When we're dealing with this future, this uncertain context, the scenario-based planning and practices stand out as a method of future thinking. This is happening, you see that in many parts in East Asia, like Singapore, they have one day, the future day, that the students don't go back to school. They started that right after COVID. They tried to experiment that, the future, one day, future day, that's no back to school. So how the teachers still get engaged in PD days, but the kids were studying at home. So this was some work we are doing with the schools in Hong Kong. They are also doing different kind of future-ready experiment in their school. And this is what they do for future-ready education. They think future education is about supporting diverse abilities, integrating AI, and develop students' digital citizenship. They think it's about release time for more theme-based learning. It's about deeper learning, experiential learning. It's about the whole person development. I will not further elaborate on that. But underlying that practices, they believe what's important for future education are those contents around value education, whole person development, their identity, their international perspectives, and their higher order cognitive skills. And in terms of pedagogy and the experiences, we were putting so much emphasis on that learning motivation and self-directed learning and supporting the diverse talents and abilities and the ways of working. They call for more collaboration, more innovative teachers, and as a system-wise, we have the expectation for networked school improvement communities. And to achieve this, we needed to fail fast, and we needed to fail often. We needed to create a very safe environment within the school to experiment, to make small mistakes. And this is one of our study. We found we cannot achieve that if teachers are not engaged in this kind of professional learning communities. And it was really reciprocal relationship between these two. You needed to engage in these professional learning communities, and you innovate. And you innovate, you are engaged in more relevant and meaningful professional learning communities. So I will not show these slides, but this short video showing us how those people, disadvantaged people, visually or physically impaired people could benefit from this movement, the global advancement of the technologies. And he is a programmer and his job is programming, and he using his so I will skip this one. So based on our studies, so AI is part of the future, a very important part of the future. So we did a series of expert interview, and exploratory factor analysis, confirmatory factor analysis. What we found that the best practitioners, the expert researchers in the field, we all pointing to these 4 dimensions for future-ready school leadership. They are strategic foresights. You need to imagine and visualize, thinking about the future scenarios. And they're addressing, they put so much emphasis on, while they're embracing the technology, this technological leadership stand out as a independent, distinct dimension. At the same time, they also put a similar emphasis on addressing diversity and equity. And that also requires system thinking and handling uncertainties. So these were those dimensions that stand out when we're talking about making our school, offering a school future-ready education. Yeah. Education resources are never enough. We see many cases, many different applications of technology and AI. And the best integration is not necessarily with the schools that have the strongest resources or capacity. So the key takeaway I wanted to summarize, wrap up my presentation, I think are these 5 points. So we needed to develop, to be future ready, we needed to embrace a slightly different set of leadership practices that is different from transformational leadership, instructional leadership, or ICT leadership. And the best technologies are those aligned with your school needs and strategies. There is not a single best strategy, but those, the best technology are those aligned with your school needs and strategy. So it's worthwhile to invest into. It's necessary, worthwhile, I think we heard so much this morning, to invest into teachers' readiness for AI. And we needed to leverage external resources, and a partnership is never so important to partner up with different sectors, to partner up with experts in AI. And at the end, I wanted to say is that improved AI application is similarly as important to integrate AI, but also using AI to improve addressing equity and diversity. So I would like to wrap up my presentation here. Thank you for being with me.
Muchas gracias, profesora Jiafang, por esta tan interesante presentación, esta mirada desde el Centro de Liderazgo y Cambio.
We didn't have a lot of time, so this is a reflection on the ideas that stood out the most, and thinking about our local context as well. Many of the ideas and key messages that I'm taking away from your presentation are also challenges that our educational system has, and our system of public education, areas that local territorial development, local ability. And an idea that I'm thinking about is that AI presents several lessons that transcend AI itself. It's related to these topics about leadership, and it's also established within the educational culture and how schools get ready and local contexts get ready to these ever-changing environments. That it's what's new today. AI concerns us today in particular, but we are going through times of big changes, and it seems to me that there are several ideas that I'd like to highlight. One is the strategic view, to be prepared, and I think leadership is to have that skill and the experience we gathered from the pandemic that required us to adapt to a different teaching scenario that also included technology. Taught us a lot about this, and we need to be ready to these complex realities. And what was key for, because it was complex for all, but those who were able to address it better, was not really related to those schools that were more technological. It didn't have to do with that, although economic resources were an influence and the technologies available for the students as well, and that the students had. But also those that had the capacity and the educational culture that allowed them to adapt and to face this new challenge, face this new technological environment, the issues about mental health, to adapt the curriculum, to reestablish full times, and that seemed so extreme during the pandemic as an experience. In a way, AI makes us look at it the same way as a challenge, and the culture of learning is very important of all of those school centers and all of the different challenges each one may have. There are a few characteristics that are important, and the second idea I'm taking home, this is not about buying the latest technology, and applications are very interesting. It's the one that you showed during the presentation, and it might be useful for some, others not as much. It depends on the educational project. I think that that's a view. It's not really related to what platform to include or etc. But mostly, how do we face this world with AI, and how do we address these topics that are highlighted in the diversity that we have in classrooms, the flexibility that we may have to adapt to all of these ever-changing realities, and the educational project that drives us toward this change, that act as compass when facing all of these changes. I would say that the challenges that we have with AI don't have one answer that fits all. The way that we can adapt it varies. How can we leverage as well as the challenges that are so different? Because we're working with different realities, rural context, urban context, some highly vulnerable, some better resources, whether we work with vocational schools, professional schools. Some are more related to develop skills to use and develop AI and use these technologies, but also in other projects, scientific or more humanistic schools, we face other challenges, other problems, but we do so with a critical perspective. So I would say that one of the challenges that we are facing with AI is that we tend to understand that this requires to be uniform and to all do the same. And I take away this idea as well because it's a context that changes, and what's important is the coherence and pertinence with which we address this, more than just being highly technological. A third idea that I'm taking as a takeaway, and so that we can hear a few of your comments to end this session. I see in the presentation the idea that what moves us and what moves education and leadership, it's still teaching, and it's an idea that we always repeat, and it's very important today because our task is to train, to form students that have agency, and technology has certain risks that might increase our passivity or how passive we are, or lose critical views. So we look at students this way and put that as a challenge. So we need to look at it at different contexts and what does it mean. But that does not change. Certain meanings are permanent, and that's what I'm trying to say. Today we have students, and I showed these images in the beginning. There are students that live in this world with AI, and they are having a different relationship with knowledge in the way that they learn, and we are concerned that they need to develop this agency to think autonomously, and so that they can contribute as citizens. And we need to think what are the skills that they need to have and how we work on those in this context. And some of those skills, and this is something that was presented during the Jiafang presentation. To ask questions, to analyze the questions they are receiving, and cognitive ability and skills of higher education. And with the internet, it has become very important, and we are lacking some work in this area. And now with AI, we need to be much more capable of developing this critical view that can do assessments on what AI provides and what contributes to the students. And I'm taking home, and I think it's very interesting how there are some characteristics of leadership that are permanent in time and that require this projective view, and that's comprehensive about the time days of AI, but it's basically focused on training students for this very complex and ever-changing world that's challenged by this new technology, and very certain that the future of others might come. What's your reflection on that?
For even expanding my interpretation, I will be much less nervous before my talk. Thank you so much. And yeah, I think you shared even broader and deeper than the information I tried to convey. In responding to your last question, or you wanted me to further elaborate, I shared two examples. My favorite application of the AI. This is a special school. Their students are using wheelchairs, so needed to travel around with wheelchairs. So the teacher raised an idea. Can we just walk out of the school? Some of the program working out of the school, and we let the students to contribute to the Google map. Where are those places where wheelchair users can go? And the principal supported it, finding more resources so that they can travel. I think this case addressed what you said. I think everyone has a role in this experiment. The teachers sees the needs and the potential. The principals support it. The principal is not necessarily be the original proposer of this idea, but he supported. He find other organization to fund, because when students go out, it takes money. It requires a bus, right? It requires traveling fees. And then they went to many places, even outside Hong Kong. So the students also have agency here. The students, they were in wheelchairs, but they are the knowledge contributors. They feel so proud of themselves. They're contributing to this map. So whoever in a wheelchair go to Hong Kong, they know where they can go and where they cannot. So there were some places where it was not successful. So the principals and the teachers, they needed to carry the kids and move them from the wheelchairs. It does not work out. They have to carry them in their arms. But that worked. I think that is one case showing us how that actually works. So we have this agency together. We value the students as even they are handicapped, but they also have strengths, unique perspectives. We can support them to develop, and they contribute to the knowledge in our life. So, and a second case I also like is this school, they wanted to develop the AI literacy, and then they realized the students are really better than they are. So they started up a student ambassador program. They support the students. They hire external coach, working with the students. And the students knows what they study and what they needed to, what are the difficult part, what are those gaps in their school life. They work with the external coach, and they come up with program for the students on AI. So I think I do not have a big theory for your questions, but these are those cases I see in Hong Kong in schools. They are created by the teachers. I think that's where the solution, where the answer is. The answer is in the schools, in the hands of the teachers, in the hand of the principals, is in your interaction with your kids.
Súper, muchas gracias, profesora.
Thank you. It was wonderful to talk to you. Thank you for this very interesting presentation, Professor Jiafang Lu. Thank you for Magdalena's intervention as well. We would like to hand you this present, a gift to acknowledge your participation. Before we would also how AI releases leaders, brings school leaders to focus on what matters most. Pedagogical leadership and learning of students. This will be presented by Ezequiel Molina, who is a senior economist of the Global Practice for Education of the World Bank for Latin America. Ezequiel Molina has a PhD in Policy Economy of Princeton. He's a senior economist of the Global Practice for Education of the World Bank for Latin America. He led the programs Teach and Coach to improve the quality of professors and professional development, as well as an AI champion, and he's a consultant on the use of AI in education. His research has also influenced policies in Africa, Asia, Latin America, including Chile, but also Peru, and combining academical evidence with practical innovation. He will be joined by Mr. Gabriel Ugarte, who will be commenting the presentation. He's a researcher of CEP, UC, and I would like everybody to please give a warm welcome to Ezequiel Molina, who will be doing the presentation about this free principle. Thank you so much for the invitation, for having me here. I'm very happy to be here and be able to share with you this work that we did in order to help school principals so that we could try to integrate AI without having AI what is the best way that we could help. We didn't start with AI. We started with understanding what are the problems of principals nowadays. And we found the following figures. This is the trick of 70-30, and in the world, school principals spend 70% of their time doing non-pedagogical tasks, bureaucracy basically, and the rest of the time can be put into tasks that are related not only with teaching, but actions that impact learning. And in Latin America, we have data that global school leaders collected, and I think that they're going to present today, which will be great too. But this number is a lot bigger. For Latin America, it is 70%, 76% bureaucracy and 25% tasks related to education. And let me be clear, this is not the fault of school principals. This is the system we are in, and it requires us to provide the data twice, sometimes for one report, for another report, to do a follow-up about other people's works, discipline meetings with parents, many things that although principals would like to do other things, they cannot, and that is why what's urgent sometimes kills what's important, so to say. And it is important to think about this because evidence shows that pedagogical leadership is much more important for the learning of our students than that administrative portion. However, it is impossible to dedicate the time to pedagogical leadership when most of the time we are focused on this bureaucracy. An acknowledgement is that in this book, we are going to try to understand what are school principals doing in order to use AI, and so that they can automate some processes that are part of this bureaucracy. And these options, the best, and although you say this is such a wonderful book and it will help me, this is not perfect yet. The best solution is to look at all of the requirements that principals need to do and think which ones are really important, which ones we shouldn't ask them, which one can be automated by the system without principals having to do these processes more than once. So, although we'll focus on how AI can help us solve this, with these policies, we might do much more than this. But this is even if nothing changes, because we know it's very difficult to create these changes at the government level. School principals can understand the system as it is and use AI to try to recover time and use it in pedagogical leadership.
So what do we do? We work with 100 principals of all of Latin America, many of those in Chile. And one of the co-authors of the book is a principal of a school here in Chile. We work with these 100 principals to try to understand what they are doing, what made it useful to apply AI to be better school leaders. And then what we did is how can we codify all of this information in a method that is simple to transmit. So our work was more into interpreting and codifying what was being done than just to create it ourselves. And the objective again was to use the power of AI with the power of evidence of what we know works on school leadership, especially in the public sector. I think that's exactly what we tried to do with the book. And that's what we wanted to see. You can now open up ChatGPT and ask it these things and everything is going to be okay. But what we wanted to do is how and what do we know about that task? What do we know is going to be the best thing to make so we can keep moving ahead. That's why one of the co-authors has written before some bestsellers of school leadership and instruction. Okay, so what are these 5 things that we call the free principle? And free is our acronym in Spanish, libre, to adopt AI in the work of principals. So first, it localizes whatever is leaking. So you cannot change what you don't know. So if I ask you, how long does it take or how do you distribute your time on the whole week in different activities, it's really hard to tell exactly how you use it and how you allocate it. I couldn't even do that. And that is important. Why? Because if we don't know how we allocate our time, we don't know what we are giving priority to and what we can improve. So with this, we want them to think about documenting how they are using their time. And when they do it, they realize that this pitfall of the 70-30 is happening. And in the same analysis, we realized it's not 70-30, it was 90-10 in some cases. So it's important to understand how we are using our time. And we are going to look into that in the book too, why this happens. Because it's important to understand that many of these bureaucratic tasks are not efficient, but we get used to them. And to change from that to be a pedagogical leader that goes into classes and looks different classes and analyzes data and has meetings with the teachers to improve, that's really hard. None of this is easy. AI can help, yes, but the work becomes even harder. So that's one of the things that we recognize. And I want to comment in a bit more how we manage that. The next one is implementing solutions with ethics with AI. So what we do, we use 10 rows of different cases of how you can implement the AI in a school setting as principal. So processing documents, understanding requirements, and do meetings and looking through classes or analyzing data of learning. And there are many important things. And why do we have here ethics? Because when you start using AI, you have to be really careful about the information that we share with the AI and what we do with that information. So in the book, we go into that too. There is another point that is quite important, and I think is one of the hurdles that don't let us use AI so much. Because in many of these lectures, they start talking about the no's, right? No, you cannot do this. You have to be scared of this other. You have to look to the framework. And there are 100,000 pages that tell you what not to do. And then they say, okay, try to use AI. So, of course, many people are going to be like, I don't know if I want to use it because I'm afraid of failing and making a mistake. So it's important to understand the different steps to use AI. The third point is to search at real impact. Because I can say, okay, great, look at this prompt. This is how you have to talk to the AI. And then they lose 5 hours using that, something that by hand took 10 minutes. That's not a solution at all. So part of that and part of the methodology that you will find in the book is to check that the uses of AI are actually leading you into improvement in your pedagogical leadership, that you save time and that you have gained time in your life. Another thing that we found when we worked with the 100 principals, this bureaucracy divide, it wasn't in the 40 hours. Many were working more than the 40 hours they are assigned. So they were working on dinner, working on their cell phones or on holidays, and many times without being able to be with their families, really stressed out. Many principals talk about working while sick because they had to do it. It could not be delayed. So we think this is also potentially a help to reduce the time lost. The next point is that it reinforces the success and you learn from failure. And why? Because many times AI is presented as here is the solution. Go do it. And everything is going to be easy and quick. But what we found is that if, for instance, right now I show you how to make a class plan with AI. In 10 seconds it's going to be done, and it looks okay. They are going to say, oh, this is great. But what happens really many times is that at the beginning, people is really motivated to use it, but after a week, the urgent things come back. The calls that I need to do this, I need to do that. And to use AI ends there. And they cannot create systems. So this book also is looking into that with the methodology for 10 Clear and another academic to think about how can we go from routine to system.
And that's part of what we are going to be trying, creating, giving the solution of how to use AI, but how make it permanent and sustainable within time. And the last point, expansion in an intelligent manner. It's not worth it to use as a principal to take a book and say, okay, you learn to use AI, you learn to do it perfectly, but no one else in the school does it. And that is just on the principal's office. So how can we make that the whole school is also free? How can we expand the use? And what we want to comment here on this point is that it's not just read this book and read this course, because no one is going to use it to do it, but how to help them solve the problems that they have as teachers, as pedagogical managers, and so on. And from that point onward, we can start expanding. In the book, we have 3 stages, we call them, in terms of case usage. First one is to recover time. What can we do to save time and reduce that 70-30? And still doing everything that we have to do. So we have different chapters talking about that. And in one of those, we talk about many principals that feel they have no real management of their calendar. So they feel like, okay, I have a meeting in the morning and then 5 in the afternoon that I didn't ask for, but I have to be there. And going from that into thinking beforehand, what are the things I want to do? And many times they tell us, hey, I was going to go look into that class, but then the urgent thing that is not really important, but it's urgent and I have to do it. And it came and I had to. So how can I manage that with my time? Also use AI to process documents. If we start counting all of the reports that get into the principal office weekly, they're going to have between 10 and 7 hours just reading. Just reading. So this helps them with that. Another of the points that we saw, the principal said, okay, I have to create the communication of the new program that we have. But I have to do it for the teachers, for the parents, for the pedagogical manager. And now I have to create this to send it through WhatsApp, this through email, this for the system. And 18 times the same message, and then someone says, hey, I didn't get your message. I don't know anything about this program. And AI can help you with that, but also many people are scared because they see it in their mails, that they get emails from people that didn't know what a comma and point is, and now they write as if they are PhDs of the Spanish language of how to write. So that is not really using correctly AI. You can give it resources of things that you have already written to understand how you write, so it understands how you want to communicate. That saves you time too. And also, something that we see, we lose a lot of time, meetings that don't solve anything. There is not even a clear objective for the meeting. The teachers that are there are looking at their cell phones, but are not really attentive to what's happening in the meeting. So how can we go from that to effective meetings and to be able to make decisions in better time frame? And in the second one, time is not the biggest issue, but we want to improve the learning culture. And here we have a difference in style. The students don't come to school, for instance, or what we see now is not that they are not coming. It's not that they are not coming out half of the classes. Now they are skipping 10 or 15% of the classes, and this is a critical issue that is almost silent, but we see it in all of the countries of this region. These are kids that are losing a lot of days of classes in school because they say, oh no, it's raining, or oh, poor little boy, he has been going all week to school, so let him stay. And that is, it goes against them on the long run. So this data could be in the school or maybe not, but it's hard to look at those because it's really hard for them to be able to get to that information and think what they could do with each case. AI, though, will be able to help with it. Okay, I'm in minute 17, and according to my plan, I should be in the minute 5. So I'm going to keep moving ahead, but I wanted to talk a bit more about what you're going to find in the book. And in the third stage is pedagogic leadership. This is part of the work that we did with Paul Bambrick. I don't know if you have read any of the books of Paul. They are really good, but the issue is that they are all really long, and you need to read them, not just thinking of what is useful for me, but how to implement it in our schools, and that is a lot of work. And what we see here is, okay, yes, they are good ideas. Maybe someday I will do it with the urgent things are finished, that we know that's never going to happen. So we think, how can I use this theory? So the AI helps us to bring it into our context for our kids, for our school, for our teachers. So that's our data detective that's going to look into the data of assessments, see what is not working really well or what could be improved. We have a lot of standards tests. There come many at the end of the year, and according to the different governments, they say, oh, this is better than the last one, but they are not being used for what they really matter. What are the students learning? If the test is not useful for the teacher to change things that they are doing in their lessons, it's really not useful. It's not that we're happier or less happier with the assessment tool. The idea is that it helps us also to learn how to teach better and how to be coherent with what is in the program and what the teacher is delivering with the evaluation, with this assessment. Many times they are not in line, especially when we are looking at the different models that Paul designed and how to use them in their professional development. Okay, so I just said this, and you are trusting that everything that what I'm going to show you is useful for some, right? What can we say up till now? If this would be, if everyone here would be a scholar, you would say what I'm going to say here are just results that are really dispersed results with a sample of principals that wanted to work with us, and that this doesn't use the scientific method. We still are in baby steps here to say, okay, I just pick some random principles in theory, I train them, and then they can create the same results. Yeah, we don't know about that, but we're working on that. But with the 100 principles that we worked on in Latin America, we see these results, and they do promise a lot. They went from development planning from 2 hours or more to 25 minutes. Then to speak with the authorities from 90 minutes to 20 minutes, and other cases that we are going to keep together right now. Okay, I don't have that much time, so I'm not going to show all of the solutions that we have here in the book, but I'm going to show 3 so you have an idea. The first one, and these are 3 different cases that are real, and that's another thing. All of these experiences of the 100 principles we worked with are integrated in the book. So here you are going to be able to read about real cases of principles, and we're going to see some here about how they are using this method and how it is helping them. So the first one is the monthly report. In case of Patricia in Mexico, each month she had to write the report. It took a whole evening. And she could copy the one from the last month, but she felt bad about that, so she did it every time anew. She always started from scratch. So here's the prompt. The prompt, if you don't know what it is the instruction that you give to the AI. It's nothing complex. But what we use here is a prompt for it to read the last report to understand how she writes, and then say, okay, what are the new things? What's the new things to report using the methodology of you, what, how? I'm sorry, what? So you, who you are, who do you want the AI act as, what, and the how is how you want it to present it, the text. And in this example, we can see that we have 4 stations. So the book shows you it's a prompt, it's an instruction for the AI that gives you spaces you have to contextualize and fill in based on your experience and needs, and then you apply it to the AI. And one of the issues that we see here that, maybe you see this issue that someone wrote something perfect and your friend doesn't write like that. So the idea is to adjust the content. The first answer that the AI is going to give you, most likely it's never going to be the one that you use at the end. So this part of the dialogue is really important to understand what it did well and what we want to change. And sometimes it's also correct mistakes because the AI makes mistakes. It's not mistake proof. And sometimes it's not a mistake, but it's not what I wanted to say. So we have to change it. And lastly, there is a moment where the AI gave you everything that it could, but you have to take it out of the AI and put in things that only you know and you don't want to share with the AI. It's sensible information.
And that's how we reach that first prompt. And you can see it entirely, but this is what Patricia did. And when she used it, she saw that the information she gave, there were paragraphs that needed adjustments, change what needed to be changed, fixed it. And although it wasn't perfect, she managed to do in a lot less time what would have taken hours. And not just that, but also she ended up doing something that showed her voice. It didn't seem like a robot. And this is the second thing I was mentioning earlier. This is from a principal of Lima who didn't understand why the students were learning in their math class of second year of high school until he realized. And he told me he had a teacher that was really good, very hard worker, and he didn't understand what was happening until he did the following. He looked at the official program, which is what was being asked, what the teacher was teaching through his observations, and what was being assessed in the end. And that's when he realized that the problem he was trying to look for was right there. In this case, it was related with the quadratic functions, and he was doing algebraic factorization, and he was teaching only part of that concept. But in the assessment, they asked to do optimization problems, which was something a lot more complex than what was happening in the class, and also different with what was happening with the program. So they realized it wasn't teacher's problem, it wasn't the problem of the ministry, that since there was a incoherence between these 3 parts of the same problem, he could talk to the teacher to see how to change the instruction in order to reach those goals. lastly, the one that I like the most, it's the case of Sofia from Bogota, and it's related to teacher feedback. I don't know how you do it, but a lot of the feedback that I've seen is, okay, the class was good, maybe you can improve the connection of the topic with the lives of the students so that it is a little bit more interesting for them. Wonderful, we'll see you in 2 months, and then that's it, nothing happens because the feedback isn't clear or what they are being asked for. Teacher smiles but really doesn't understand what they're saying to them, and we keep going because there's so many other things to do and you don't have time for that. So how to improve that teacher assessment into something that can be useful? And this is the final result that I am showing. In the books, we take it step by step to reach this goal. That is to see, to name, and to practice the model. And you can be much more specific on what you saw during the class and you thought was right. Those are things that can be improved. And about those aspects that can be improved, be very explicit on what it's that can be improved, and how to talk about this, how to talk to the teacher so that they can improve that was seen during the class. So you have a decision. We all have a decision. Option A is to say, yeah, that was a wonderful presentation I saw before lunch. I was getting sleepy, but yeah, it was good. I'm downloading the PDF of the book, and whenever I have time, I'm going to take a look at it, read it, and I'm going to put it in my pile of PDFs that I have listed as urgent to read, and that can be an option. Option B, it's reading it with skepticism, and you're right, because how many times have you heard that this thing will solve problems that you have, and problem continues to be there? But yeah, it's good that you look at it with skepticism. But then I have another option for you that I hope that you can do, which is giving it a real chance and try to use one of the use cases. Do it for a week, check if it goes well, if it works. If not, you didn't waste that much time. The time you lost on this would have been another lost time in the meeting, so it wouldn't be that bad if you lose time on this. And if the QR code still works, this is the entire book. You can find the prompts, everything I mentioned can be found in the book. On the cover of the book, actually, it's of a real principle of 3 months difference between each one. The amount of messages he receives from WhatsApp or on WhatsApp about the school. And he was telling me, some principals were telling me the other day that they have 15 WhatsApp groups, and they're all the official group where they receive different information, and they're supposed to read all of the messages received on those WhatsApp. So how to go from that into something that's organized and that's useful, and that's what we try to do with the book. Another thing we did is creating a community. We have a community of 350 principals of Latin America where we share tips, advice, support. Somebody says, I'm working on this or that, and these worked for me or they didn't. And many of the people who participated in the book are also part of this community. And you don't have to believe me only. I will show you now a video with the principals sharing their stories. As a principal, you always have a burden of a lot of administrative work and many tasks to fulfill. And that administrative load, in the end, leaves aside that time that you have to spend with students in the classroom or during breaks. This option of the free director of a principal gives me the provides with the Gemini tool where I have created gems that allows me to be assistants of interpretation of regulation, or to have an assistant to support communication management. And I mention this because those elements are the elements that take the time of principal. I never used these type of platforms. When I got to know them, I was invited to participate this methodology, and I saw a change right away because all of those hours I was using in operational topics that wouldn't add a lot of value, I am now using them into thinking and doing this work with the team, reflect, think, and to make improvements for our school. With AI at work, I feel like I have more time to connect with my colleagues, to spend time in the classroom with my students, and have more time to talk to the parents. To have information available in just 1 second allows you to make better decisions. To use AI has been key for me as a principal. I decrease my administrative load and focus on aspects that I think are important, such as the process of learning of the students and to support teachers. I also have more time to work and to be with my family and to do sports that I love. I think AI would not replace a position or people. This is a tool that it allows you to improve what you do in your role. And this is also related on how we work with the different means that we have available so that the work is much more efficient, fast, and you can address other elements that are also important. This methodology of redirector I'm using to help myself in the use of data. So identifying those students that have better results, what's the impact of attendance in their learning, what's the impact of the different actions that we're doing in professional development and in the learning of the students. I highly recommend to use Director Libre or free principle to read the book, to use the methodology, because it truly is a support to our daily work. And what we did in order to help them adopt the Director Libre or the principle, because you'll have the PDF at hand at some point, you'll be able to read it. It's more than 200 pages. So what we wanted to do was to do this a little bit easier. Although we cannot read the book for you, what we try to do is to summarize the prompts that we have in the book. We put them all on the website. In the website, you can click, copy and paste the prompts, and we can all go and check which prompt seems good for you, which not as much. It has stars, so it's like Amazon. You can give a star from 1 to 5 or 0 to 5. You can score which one do you think are the best. You'll see the ones that have the highest scores. And for example, if you're already working with AI, I have another one that I think it's better than the one that you're using. You can contribute with those that you think are better that you're already using. People will provide a score to that. And then if it's really good, it will be at the top of the list. The other thing that we have is a tool of ChatGPT that's for free. You can access that ChatGPT with the free account. You can access that. It's customized. It includes Director Libre plus some help. And you can go from the problem that you have to write in a way so AI understands it. This AI tool will help you do that. It will help you create better prompts. You can also use prompts so that AI executes them and provides with results to you, but it's thought to be used for both things. And since we don't want you to only see OpenAI, we also use Google Notebook LM. But if you prefer OpenAI, it's also for free. And for the case of the use of Google Notebook LM, it also has an audio that will summarize the book. It has slides. You can ask questions to it. You can ask questions about the book. And it can also provide a video. It's not the best video. It won't be like a video that will summarize a book. And it will be a great video, but it's for free, so it helps. And what's good is that all these tools improve and improve, so every time you'll have better results. And to conclude, I'd like to share what we are doing now and what's to come. We are working on the free teacher or Docente Libre, which is the same idea for teachers. for planning of their classes and assessments, etc. And then the administrative worker, three. And we believe that sometimes AI, it's very focused on the teacher, the principal, and this is what you have to do or what you can do, and not as much in those administrative workers or ministry staff. So we want to help them improve things, and we're doing trainings on the use of AI for principals in several countries, also impact assessments to try to understand what I was saying earlier, and to be rigorous about how to adopt it and how we can improve learning. And what we are also doing is more case visits, because there's this country where they were telling me that the principals were in charge of distributing the reports for the teachers, and they would lose a lot of time on that for each student, on the size, on how much to ask. And there were issues with the utilization. They have one problem, several restrictions, and they have to do it. And AI is really good on helping on those type of optimization. So we're also expanding and working on this, which is Director Libre, or the great principle in practice, where we share case uses, but more in detail on what the AI provided. This is a conversation you'll have with AI, so that it's easier for principals to say, okay, my case is different because it has this or that, and so that they customize it to figure out how to do it. These are some examples on how we are creating some of these cases. And I can share the slides later. This is for you to open the QR so that you don't look at your WhatsApps. And lastly, I wanted to show you this. I'm very excited about this, about what we are doing, which is creating a platform, an entire platform where you can find the AI cases in it, and you can actually see the prototype. Do it because it's very interesting. You'll be able to see what we have available classes, and if you put a document on it, it will analyze it. And the idea is that the use cases of principles to be all in one platform, updated for each country. And this would be even better if this could be integrated to the system that the government has. So it's not like you have to think about a specific regulation. What should I attach to the AI? The AI collects them all. You don't have to worry about this. And some of those things you might not need to do anything else. The government could say, okay, these are the data that I need, and from that data, a report will be made, or a draft of a report will be made. But it will allow you to automate a lot of those tasks. That's the book once again, and that is all. Thank you very much. I thought I had more slides, but no, that's all. Thank you. Thank you for this interesting presentation, Mr. Ezequiel Molina. Now we want to invite Gabriel Ugarte, who will be sharing a few comments on this lecture. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the invitation to Summit UC, and to the invitation to comment on this very interesting presentation of Ezequiel Molina about this book of the Free Principle. I think that probably many of the things are
because this is a very complex project, and many of the things I'm mentioning, Ezequiel already said it, but this is a very interesting project. Many other people have also participated, Karina Lopez, Sama, Chilean psychologists, and I'm sure that the Chilean reality is also represented within this project. Important week. because we have read these books and the impact that it's had in the training of principals, and many of us have generated resources based on those recommendations. And it's a shared work that is presented today by Ezequiel.
I would like to structure my comment by starting with the contributions of this book, of the strategy that's illustrated the book, and also how can we compare with the Chilean reality, and also a few comments that came up as I was reading the book. That although it seems long, it's heavy, but it's easy to read. So first, the contributions. We know that Chile has a big challenge regarding the going back of that pathway of improvement of learning. We've been in a stagnant point with the learning, and it's due to different reasons. Many of the factors were amplified also during the pandemic. This book provides relevance to one of the main factors that can help us change this trajectory, which is the importance of principals' leadership. And one of the main contributions is to look back at time as a critical supply for pedagogical leadership. And it's very clear that without time, principals can lead the improvement of learning. And a second contribution, it is related to how the technology can contribute to improve learning, and all of this in this current context in which it's demanded, and there is a growing question about how can technology contribute. And I am saying this because you start seeing that there's this a prohibition of using smartphones in the schools, and it's getting stronger. In some countries, they are changing digital resources to printed resources. They are decreasing the amount of time spent on screen, and in the US, they show a correlation of the amount of time spent on screen with screen time and less time learning. So this book will help us focus on what's important. Technology is important and how we use it.
And how Ezequiel and his team has shown, the idea here is not to replace the principal, it's not to replace the teacher. The idea is to free this time so effectively this interaction, this teaching and learning could be from quality and that it occurs. So I think it's really important what this book gives us. And the other point is that it just doesn't stay in diagnosis, but it goes into really concrete applications. And I would say that the principal topic that it gives us is how can we help each principal using this technology. So it brings it now to the national reality. I was looking into the Pulse survey that Ezequiel showed, and they have some data points for Chile. And what do the principals say in Chile? They use 68% of their time in administration tasks. So we are also falling into the trap of the 70-30. And there are some analyses that show that Chile has pretty high demands for the schools in administration and especially in public sector. In municipality schools, I think they are going over that 70-30. And the worst part is that many of these requests look absurd, and some are close to absurd, to duplicate reports, to, for instance, say, oh, we spent this much in color paper, for instance. So maybe if I ask many of you here, and probably many of you here are principals or directors of teams, you would talk about these regulations that create these duplicities, and maybe you would talk about preferential subvention and how we can talk about school integration and all of the red tape. So I would also like to touch a bit in what is happening in the public sector. We did a study to look into what happens with the overseers that we have here. There is not really that much space to move in between. So what we wanted to see was what happens with grants. We have almost 30, and you have to use different templates to share the data, and how can we consolidate all of the grants and subventions. And what we calculated is, so we have less grants, we will have less time of overseeing. But if we just look into the fiscal impact, it's not that high. But if you look into how many hours we could free, I think we would talk about about a number that's really high. And the consequences here in the Pulse survey, Chileans are the most stressed in the region. Of the 350 principals, there is a lot of burnout, emotional exhaustion, and in the index of well-being between teachers, 43% of teachers say that their principal has never seen a class. And there is a percentage that has never received feedback based on observation. And what we see here is that there is a reason that is quite important. This is not because they don't want to, but principally because they don't have enough time. And with this, I will close with the last comment. I had many, but I'm going to just stay with 3. I think Ezequiel said it at the beginning of his presentation. This is a help for the principals to find this time. But I think we have to also talk to our system, our schooling system, because if the system keeps giving more requirements, more regulations, AI is not going to be able to help us. So I think it's important to highlight that. It's important that the principal have this tool and to share this tool. And Ezequiel had an easy way to explain it. And it's in the literature, we have talking about red tape. That is a really economical term. And it was interesting for me that they are using this term into education that is from economics, and it has to do with doing many things that are with documents that really don't add value. And right now I would say that there is a concept in economic side of things that they need to simplify things, and I think that also needs to be reflected in our area of education. And the second comment is that time is needed, but it's not enough. And I think that's the biggest challenge. If the principal uses 80% of their time looking into dosing fires and being just a manager of different of papers and so on, this needs to be a cultural change, that this time that is freed can be used now into looking classes, into feedback for the teachers. I really value the book tries to embrace that and face that, how the principal can use this new time that has been freed, but it goes beyond AI. This is a cultural change, is a change in attitudes. And the focus should be in how do we use this quote-unquote spare time. And another thing that I see reflected here, when you read the book, I actually learned to use better AI after I read the book. So this idea of the prompts, of how, what, helps a lot in any aspect. And the tool that Ezequiel proposes and his group can be used in many other instances. And in administration, for the different agencies of education in the Ministry of Education. It could be really used so we can free time that is trapped in bureaucracy to improve learning. And to close, I just want to say thank you, Ezequiel, for your presentation. I think it shows how important this critical resource is, and maybe it's the most scarce one, how we can reclaim our time and use it into improve learning and the needs that our system already has. Thank you so much. Again, thank you so much, you both, especially Ezequiel Molina, for this interesting lecture, but also Gabriel Ugarte, please give this gift to Ezequiel. Thank you for your participation during today. And that's why we give you this present in acknowledgement. Thank you also, Gabriel Ugarte. Now we're going to keep moving ahead with the next lecture, Collaboration for Transformation of Territorial School Networks, by Ernesto Treviño, Director of Leadership Center for Educational Territories Transformation. Ernesto Treviño is a PhD of Education of Harvard University, and right now he is a researcher of this university. He works in transformation of education, also in law of education. He has worked with other bodies of education. Between those, we highlight the UN. So, Ernesto Treviño, please, the stage is yours. Good afternoon. It's intimidating how many people we have here. It's a pleasure to be here with you all, presenting some of the elements that are key in our Center of Leadership for Transformation of Educational Territories. This is supported by the Education Ministry and is part of the strategy of education of the country. We collaborate with Universidad Católica, also University Silva Enriquez, or the University of Antofagasta, and we work with the authorities of the ministry, both national and local. This is the disclaimer. I want to share our dream, our proposal, and the work that we are going to keep doing that is based on 17 years of collaboration directly with the schools in the different territories. Many laws have passed, and we still are here fighting for education. So our proposal, and I'm not going to stay here very long, has to do with the policies of leadership, with building the capacities of the territories. Through research, we have seen that we have really good policies, good infrastructure for working, but when we need to implement, that's the challenge because of how diverse the contexts are, and also the contextual challenges And for that, we want to support these improvement processes, focusing on well-being, on community, and strengthening learning and students' relationship with the school system. So by researching, by teaching, by learning, by being with the schools, and working together in collaboration, in assessment and also feedback. And in feedback, it's a really important point, thinking that feedback is really different to assessment feedback, that many times is really cognitive and it's part of the educational system in all of their levels. And what we want is to find transformations and drive them that are profound for the communities. And the best way to do this is by the stakeholders, the actors in each community. It's really easy to think about solutions when you are outside, but it's really hard to be in the shoes of the people that are facing those concrete challenges each day. Our vision and objective have to do with systematic emphasis. First, our diagnostic tool is that in some of our local services of education, what happens is that different subdirections work together and they lose opportunities of strengthening the work of supporting schools. This is not the fault of the services, but of how quickly they have to be created and then respond to the needs and the resistance that sometimes they find in the professional side of things, of people, of what happens from one municipality to a service and so on. Our seal has to do with working on the field. We are working on the different zones of Chile, the north, the center, and the south, according to what the policy of leadership requires. And our strategy, our strategic vision, and my friends always talk about this metaphor that I like to use, but it has to do with creating safe spaces to improve psychologically. And it's like kids full on cortisol. If you have a lot of cortisol in your brain, it's really hard to learn. So we need to lower the levels of cortisol in the organizations, in the network, to improve trust so we can face the daily problems that appear. Also, we have realized through this research that we need to keep moving a few steps more into the implementation of the policies. Many times, the policies have some typical some tools. For instance, the newsletter. They send a newsletter and they say, okay, let's see what happens. But we don't know if it's going to be approved, what is going to happen. The other one is dissemination. Going ahead beyond the newsletter, we have the grounding of the policy. But when you focus on that grounding and go into implementation, the logic is, let's make it happen. We are going to look into the problems locally, but let's sort these problems. We know how to fix some of them, but through collaboration and through finding experts and recognize the expertise that exists in the networks and transfer knowledge, we have a bigger potential of improvement. Just for an example, we had an assessment for all of the fungi kid care in the Tarapacá region. 30% of the teachers of small children, 30% was at the level of Finland, in the desert of Chile. Why aren't we using these teachers that are at the level of Finland to share knowledge? And we need to think more how institutionally we can keep moving ahead in that dissemination, building and sharing capacities. And it's also really important to think about implementation. Firstly, not everything that is disseminated is implemented. And there is a characteristic that comes from the inception of these ideas, and then we need to look also into the results of the service. Are we efficient? Are we effective? Are we actually serving the different establishments according to their needs, or are we just looking into those that have always good results and the ones that show less resistance to us? This is quite important when you do a grounding, a real grounding of your strategy. And afterwards, you need to look into the result for the user. So we look into the kids and the communities and see if they improve in some of the aspects that I already shared. For that, we first think about and proposed that the principals and leaders don't appear out of nothing. It's not that they just appear. They are teachers that have a long career, and those teachers taking job with more responsibility in the director team, in the schools, and also could be in territorial teams.
And to do so, we thought about a systemic organization in which we have, on one hand, on that external layer, territorial leaders that need to relate to directors or principal leaders that also have to do things in the classroom with relate to teachers that are leaders, and also in a setting where the students are also leaders. We have student leaders in the formal aspect as well as the informal aspect. We have structures of participations that promote student leaderships, and we rarely ask this question, which is very hard, very, very hard. Because like Maturana said, this is a coordination of resource coordinations, and all of this is also related to the strengthening of capabilities and different skills. We've done this for 3 years. We work with the SLEP Gabriela Mistral. We learned a lot. The first year, they didn't really believe about these schools, teachers. We received the criticisms, but we were tough and we resisted. And this is part of the implementation. We need an assembly of leaderships, and it is highly related to organizational work and human development. We also have a perspective of continuous improvement. This is a concept that has been highly used too much. We need to improve continuously. It's what they say. We don't really know how to do it. There's no standardized recipe that can be disseminated with a newsletter. So therefore, The concept of continuous improvement is related to the fact that all of the participants of a system need to understand the system, so that they don't start saying, no, the principal is lazy, he didn't come to the meeting, etc. No, we need to understand what are those pressures that it demands, so that we can understand each other as a community to build solutions based on the characteristics and the demands that each one has. We need safe psychological conditions so that we can identify what are the problems. And an interesting information about public health within this logic proposes and shows that hospitals that report the most amount of mistakes are the ones that improve the most, are the ones that have the best result indicators compared to those that report less errors. And the hypothesis behind this is that some hide the errors behind walls, but to learn from errors, learn from the mistakes is something that we always say, but it's easier to say than doing it. So we need to understand that variation. One score of CIMSE, the assessment test of Chile, just achieving one extra point doesn't mean that we have to party and celebrate that. And one less point doesn't mean that we need to start crying because we have one less point in that score. We need to understand those variations when you are working on improvement and when you're introducing changes, because there are learning curves related to that. Lastly, learning. This won't work if all of the participants are not learning, all of them. Some want to learn more, some believe it's easier. We went to Puerto Montt weeks ago with a work that we do with the Luxich Foundation, and there was a teacher who was resistant, highly resistant. We were presenting the final results, and the teacher, with a voice that didn't sound enthusiastic, said, you know what? When we started, I thought that this was going to be useless, and we were not going to be achieving anything. But I'm very happy, and he didn't seem happy with this tone of voice, but he said, I'm very happy that we managed to do this. But as you can see, it's related to look at those needs that are more necessary for the teachers and communities. I won't take a lot of time on this slide, but within this collaboration, within this logic of having networks of collaboration in the territory so that we can learn from each other, facilitate the work, what we do is apply in continuous improvement, and we plan, learn, do, and assess. Key question here is, when a change or an innovation represents an improvement? And did we manage to do what we wanted to do? Did we reach the goal? We need the goals. It isn't about us. It isn't about feeling better because we're doing things differently. It is related to that what we do needs to have positive consequences on the three elements of the implementation that I showed you. That goes from adoption, points in between, and also the final beneficiaries. And this is where the most important learning is. It's not just universities doing the work, it's educational communities, leaders doing the work, learning from each other. And what we do is facilitate the work, and we inform the authorities, local authorities, as well as ministry policies, as it's part of our responsibility. Let me share with you now who we are. These are all the members of the Center of Leadership. Can I ask them to please stand up? I'm sorry to put you in the spotlight. Javi, Juan Pablo. Paulo, everybody, please stand up. Carmen Gloria. Camila Retamal, please stand up, everybody. Patricia Viviana. they are here in the picture in the slide. All of them are collaborators and they are also responsible on hopefully that we are able to achieve all of the results that we want to. Our colleagues, counterparts of the Ministry of Education that have been collaborators and have supported us in installing this new center. And to conclude, I would like to mention about the challenges and the dreams that we have. A technical challenge is that we need to learn to develop these capabilities in different contexts and to do the research to understand how to do this, and also then transfer the knowledge and the experience to other entities. I would love that the Director of Public Education to have an area of intelligence or skills building in order to do this, the transfer of knowledge. So basically how to improve the processes, and as I said, in the entire hierarchical change in terms of the building of skills, and how to find those communities that have more of a holistic perspective, the well-being, learning, and motivation. So basically, how do we promote that? We always put learning first, and that's filled with cortisol. But what if we turn things around? What if we find a way of doing things differently, and doing this differently with the communities, to apply research, not only from the final results, but also how to do the knowledge, how to work on the knowledge, where we have spaces for improvements. And this is a challenge. And how do we have general policies that allows us to have answers to specific challenges in different contexts? So basically to have this policy grounded and then apply it, and where we do evaluation and personal judgment of those who are on site working. What's a reasonable period of time for the skills to last and the process to last? We have a few questions about sustainability. In the academia, we say, yeah, let's go, let's do this thing once, the skills are there, it will be sustained forever and ever. But no, but people change, there's turnover, and these are questions that we need to ask ourselves so that we can provide this information to the policymakers. How to articulate territorial levels, school, students, teachers, to avoid the burden. Sometimes we realize there are 4 programs working at a time, and there's a principal working without AI, trying to coordinate all of these programs. Is it necessary to have these 4 programs? And lastly, how do we create the protected spaces of public policy for the substantial aspects, teacher councils, student councils? And I'm sorry, I always use this experience, but a lot is talked about on how to organize the event of national holidays, or the event of the school year and the end of year events, and a lot is talked about that, but we need to install this not as an additional work, but as the daily work of the schools and the centers. So our dream, and the dream that we share, is to open up roads to build an education that is more inclusive, with better quality, more equitable within the territories, and through the acknowledgement of the skills that are installed that we have installed, as well as as a country, in the schools, in the communities, and in the territories. We don't have a silver bullet or a magic wand to solve all of the problems. This is a road we need to walk together, holding hands, knowing we are going to make a mistake, but also knowing that it is our responsibility to learn from those mistakes, make amends, and also always collaborate. Because in the end, it's not just us, it's not just the teachers, the principals. It's important for this to have an impact, a positive impact in the comprehensive development of the students that will represent the future of the country. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ernesto Treviño. We want to ask you to please don't leave yet. Paulo Volante will hand you a gift to acknowledge the participation on this summit and for your presentation. We thank him for providing this lecture to be part of this conference. Thank you. And we've reached the lunch break. We are going to come back here at 2:15 p.m. Same room. For those who don't know where to have lunch, you can go to the cafe, who is downstairs where the coffee break was, or you can go to the Lastaria neighborhood, which is crossing the street. We'll have more conference panels and presentations of lectures later in the different rooms located in the second floor of this building. You can find the different lectures with the QR code that's behind your credentials. Thank you, and we'll see you back here at 2:30.